Hello and welcome back to the Puncher's Chance podcast with myself, Sam Hill, and as always, I'm joined by
Harry Tovey
and
Ben Thomas.
Now, in today's episode is a very special episode because we're joined by a very special guest. We are joined by the boxing social media. Is it social media admin? Would you say, or what would you call your role?
It says executive, but I just do a bit of just do run it when I can. Well, when I'm on shift to do so. So yeah, just a bit of social media work for.
Executive, we'll say, because it sounds a bit more proper. But we're joined by Parry here from Boxing Social, and of course also from University of South Wales sports journalism. So I mean, the first question I absolutely have to get out of the way is: you were obviously recently in Saudi for the day in reckoning. What was that like? Was that a good day out or a good couple of days out? What was the whole Saudi experience like?
Oh, it was unbelievable. Obviously, it was a massive card, but it was just surreal, really, because I was like, I've always been a boxing fan, and I'm sure if you've all been to fights, you know it's like obviously it's quite expensive to get out to fight. So like through years of going to fights, scraping money together and then having the opportunity to cover a card of that magnitude for work, it was unbelievable. And I can't fault it, really. All the big fights seem to be going over there. I'm really grateful to have the chance to go over on the early days of this whole with the Riyadh season and Turkey Al Sheikh's influence on boxing. But yeah, it was brilliant. I can't fault it at all. It was unbelievable.
What's the atmosphere like over there? That's like a main talking point, that whenever they talk about a Saudi fight, every, radio stations talking about one point, and that's the atmosphere. What's it like because you've been in the arena?
It is quite quiet, if I'm honest, compared to some of the fights I've been to and all that. Like, it isn't like mad, but I think it's still growing over there. Obviously, I don't know. If you tell me where I think it'll be in 10 years, I couldn't tell you. But I think it's still growing. The atmosphere is a bit, I don't want to say flat, but I think they are growing the sport there. I think the reason it's been picked up on so much myself is because they're putting such big cards there so early. So they haven't really built a massive fan base there yet. They've just sort of, like, if you look at the fights the last 5 years that have been in Saudi, you've had Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, which I know is a different route. You had Joshua Ruiz 2, so that was the first one. And what was it? Joshua Usyk 2 as well. Yeah. So, and then obviously they've gone in then with Fury and Ngannou, and then the Day of Reckoning. Now obviously they've got more announced, but I think because they've gone in with big fights and fights that are attracting a lot of viewers, I think they hadn't quite built the fan base up yet. But I feel like it could build on itself. Like I said, if I go to another event, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more atmosphere over there. But yeah, it is a bit quieter compared to some of like raucous nights in the UK with like hometown fighters, etc.
There's no Nathan Heaney or
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the best atmospheres I've ever witnessed is, if you ever get the chance, is Joe Cordina full event at the Motorpoint Arena. I tell you, it's loud in there. Like,
we've spent all of the entire time the podcast has been on saying that we want a card in Cardiff, and we've said, we've put Cordina and Gwyn and Lauren Price and all these names. We're desperately calling for something in Wales, but they're all going to Saudi Arabia at the moment.
One destination, yeah.
I tell you what could work well for Cardiff. This is literally my own opinion. Is there's a fight coming up in a few weeks' time. I'm sure you've discussed it. Hamza Shiraz against Liam Williams. I think if Liam Williams can pull off the upset win there, I can see Queensberry coming back to Cardiff a bit more, especially now Gavin Gwyn's on the books as well. Although his next fight is out in Saudi, like we just said, and obviously Cordina's next fight's out in Saudi too. But I think as well, going on about Welsh cards a bit, I'm very surprised Boxer haven't tried to build Lauren Price in Cardiff yet. But I'm sure they're going. I'm sure there's a plan to, especially after the fight. Jonas Mayer, I think a lot of people are thinking if it's not going to be a rematch, it's going to be Lauren Price. But I'd like to think that Boxer are going to start building here because Boxer's one of Boxer's biggest shows in the UK. It was one of the first ones they did was in Cardiff with Eubank and Williams. So I think that they've been here before. They know there's an appetite for it. And then when I also talk about Liam Williams over at Queensberry, they done plenty of shows with Liam Williams here, so they know there's an appetite here. So I'm sure Cardiff is going to surely turn out to be a home with some big nights of boxing.
Yeah, I was there for Williams and Eubank, and it was a good night. It was a good atmosphere. I had some good fights on it as well. Clarissa Shield was there, so and you obviously got. There's a good atmosphere and there's a good want to have fights around here. Like we said, we'd all be interested in watching a fight there again, but it's difficult at the minute with them seeming to want to go to Saudi. They get that extra money out there. I think that's where most of these big fighters want to go.
That's the thing, though, really, isn't it? It's all good having a good home fan base, etc. But the money, I think, I don't know the figures. Obviously, I don't think any of us really do, apart from the fighters. But the money they're getting offered to go fight out there, you know, it could convince. I'm sure it would convince anyone, really.
Yeah, you can't turn it down, can you? But like,
Can you be an idiot? Not
at the end of the day, they are prize fighters, and they're only in there for a short amount of time. You've got to make the most amount of money you can.
It's like I said, boxing. Well, like boxing's one of the most brutal sports it can be, and I feel like it's a short career, boxing. You know, like, you know, you see a football player, they can have a 15-year career. If you see a boxer have a 15-year career, you know,
one in a million, ain't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
He's done well for himself.
Not a common thing. So, yeah, like that you said, there's prize fighters, and if the money's going to come in from there, they're going to make it there, aren't they?
And if His Excellency chucked us a couple millions to go and do this in Saudi Arabia, then we'd be
100%.
dropping out of uni, I'm sure.
Definitely not jealous that Jared's been there. To
Definitely
Saudi
not,
Arabia.
definitely not.
What one thing I will say, production value of the event when you're out there is second to none. So obviously when I was out there, they had the Grand Arrivals, and we were on like in this boulevard world it was, and it was mad. It was just all like a little city that had been built up, and they had the fighters just all they did was like walk on a red carpet, stand there, shadow box in front of a few cameras, and then like got interviewed. But the production value behind it was excellent. The next day, then the public workout, they had big screens everywhere, and just it was mental. And then like, yeah, they have gone all in on it, and it does look they seem, if the production value is anything to go by, they are very, very committed on what they want to do in the sport.
Is it all in one area as well, like, or is it
Yeah.
dotted around Riyadh?
Yeah, so basically, when we got there, we all had to get on shuttle buses to the event, so just media only on the buses, and then it takes them in. So, and the Grand Arrivals was in one place because obviously they wanted the big backdrop, etc. But then the rest of the media events were in the same place, and they were actually in the arena where the fight took place, just tucked round behind where the entrances all were.
Yeah,
So-
it's just crazy the sort of event they can put together around these things, like you said, with the Grand Arrivals, and it's not something you see that we haven't really seen in boxing. They had the famous photo as well with all the ex-champions and everything. Like the sort of stuff they can put together for boxing fans is like not something you've really seen before.
And the advertisement that they did and the videos they produced with them all, you know, with zombies, and it's all just it's creating it's not just the fights on the night, and sometimes the fights on the nights were slightly disappointing in terms of, I'm going back to like I think Hergovich to Mori or something like that, where you go, oh, you know, this
That's
maybe
just filling in a space
wasn't,
thing.
yeah, but the whole event and the whole thing is just you can't doubt it, even if you wanted to. The most cynical person in the world wanted to, you couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean. It's a spectacle. Like, I wasn't at Fury and Ngannou, but who has ever seen a live concert just before the fight and then the ring pops out the ground?
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're making a spectacle, and from people that I know that were there, they said that was a mental event, just like how the way everything was done, and it did look pretty special, to be fair. Like I said, the day of reckoning, obviously with the Fury and Ngannou, we all saw there's a lot of celebrities present. Now there wasn't as many at day of reckoning, and on a personal opinion, I think it was because it was 2 days before Christmas, like, you know, all descending on Saudi Arabia, you know, and then wanting to get back to their families. I understood that, but you can see why people are going, you know, and fair play to them. Like, you know, they're putting on a great events for everyone.
What was that like, getting back from Saudi Arabia just before Christmas?
It was a hectic thing. I'll be honest. I went straight from the arena to the airport. We had a long flight back then. Obviously, I had to stop off in Jordan, I got back, I think, to Heathrow on Christmas Eve at about 2:30 in the afternoon. And then, obviously, myself, I'm a Pembrokeshire boy down in West Wales. So I got through my front door at about 10 o'clock on Christmas Eve. So it was a long old day, but, you know, for the experience I had, it was worth it.
Well, what I think we'll do is we'll to sort of to set your credentials as such. We'll talk a little bit about yourself, and then we'll circle back round to this sort of Saudi stuff and some of the boxing stuff at the moment. Which, I mean, let's be real, we could sit here till tomorrow and talk about. But what was the sort of the moment, if you can pick one out, where you got into boxing that brought you into the sport and made you fall in love with it? Maybe those are two different moments, or is it, you know, all one moment?
I was always like following it as a kid, and my family aren't massively into it. But when it was 2004, so I was like 7 years old, and my old man was watching a repeat of Mike Tyson versus Danny Williams, and even at that age, you'd still hear stories about how big Mike Tyson was a fighter and everything. And then Danny Williams beat him, and obviously this is in the end of Tyson's career. And I was like, oh, I took massive interest in it from that. Like, I don't know what it was, and I just started following it, and then, yeah, it just kept falling in love with it. And then obviously during that time, then you had the rise of Calzaghe was flying, etc. Like, you know, in the mid 2000s, and obviously, although being Welsh, you couldn't ignore being a massive fan of Ricky Hatton because of the fans he brought everywhere. And I don't mean that in a patriotic way. I mean it in the way as in, like, he was just entertainment everywhere he went. And I just kept falling in love with it. And yeah, that's where I am today now. Like, you know, I watch, if there's any boxing on the telly and I'm not doing anything, it's the first thing that gets put on in the house, and I'm all over it.
Have you got any favourite fighters apart from Calzaghe and Hatton? I'm assuming they're your top two.
Calzaghe's always going to be the one for me at the top. Yeah. You know, especially like just the things he did for like
going to Vegas,
etc. It was a bit after my time, a bit before my time, rather. Sorry, but looking back, Roy Jones Jr. Is just some of the, like, one thing, like, his career went on too long, and some of the fights he was having afterwards should have stopped. But some of the fights that he had, like, you know, going all the way up to heavyweight, winning the world title, you know, from super, is unbelievable. So yeah, that's one of my favourite fighters. And then, like I said, I just enjoy now, just seeing just how it's all evolving. So obviously, the eras of heavyweights, you went from the Tyson, the Lennox Lewis era, for instance, then you went to the Klitschko dominating era, and then you've now got the Fury Joshua. Well, it went to Fury Joshua era, and then it went to, let's be honest, Usyk's now probably up there as well. Well, not as well, he is up there. So yeah, I like seeing the way the sport's been evolving as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm enjoying Harry's wry smile when you mention Usyk being the best. Because obviously Harry's a huge Tyson Fury fan. He actually applied to change his surname to Fury, didn't you, Harry?
Of course I did.
But then so, to sort of move on, obviously you've talked a lot about your favourite fights and your favourite fighters, and then obviously now you're in a fortunate position where you cover boxing in some form for a living, and what's it like, and particularly what's it like with Boxing Social? You know, is that a big name in the business? What's it like, you know, being the manner, the way people see boxing is through you sometimes, and what's that like?
I don't really look at it like that. It's I came to uni, obviously, like, I'm a bit older than all the rest of the people. I'm in my final year now, a bit older than everyone on my course, and it was sort of just, it's weird, like, the progression was like, I thought, right, I'll try and get into, like, following boxing and trying to make something of it, because I always love watching it and etc. And then obviously we talked about this just before we came on, like, one of the, well, I think it was actually on it, Liam Williams and Chris Eubank Jr. landed in Cardiff on my first year in uni. So I went along, well, I tried to get press credentials, etc. through uni, didn't really get to, I got into the press conference, and I was really grateful for that, and I was like, oh, here we are then, let's try and build on this. So I went around messaging pages. One got back to me, Into Boxing, got back to me and they said, if you want to do some writing for us. I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I did that. And then Boxing Social, then I ended up there. Well, I went over to there, and it's weird, like, really, like you say, like, I don't really look at it as people are looking at it through, like, my eyes, like, you sort of type thing. But yeah, it's really good. I really enjoy working for them, and I really enjoy getting all the content out, and just some of the, like, uni gave me some really good experiences and credentials, etc. But being with them has really helped me as well in terms of the boxing world. You know, it was like uni got me into the sports media and journalism world. That's got me into, sort of funneled me down where I want to go. And yeah, I really enjoy it. And like I said, I mainly do a lot of social media work for them. And yeah, it's enjoyable. You know, it's enjoyable.
What's the sort of aims for the rest of this year with Boxing Social?
For myself, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. Like, really, I'm just really enjoying it and just carrying on, really, and hoping we'll see where it takes me, really. Like I said, I love following the boxing as it is. Like, I'd do it even if I didn't have the privileges of being able to work for such a big outlet. So yeah, I don't know what the aim is, really. Like, I just want to just keep building on what I'm doing and see where it takes me, really.
What's Parsons like? Because he works in Boxing Social. I've been dying to ask you this question. What's he like behind the scenes?
I get asked that a lot. He's actually a really, really good guy. I get asked it a lot.
Right, Sean?
Yeah, he's a great guy. Honestly, another one who I owe a lot to. Like, he's helped me a lot. There's the whole team there, really. Like I said, like are really, really good people. And yeah, Parsons is a great guy. To be fair, we've all seen him with Eddie in and all having his thing, but he's a good guy, and he's really helpful, and yeah, he is good as gold, to be fair. Like I said, the other two reporters I got as well, Matt Lennon and Lewis Hart, really good guys as well, the two of them, really good at what they do as well, so yeah, it's in good company over there.
Yeah, I think it's something we're seeing a lot more now over the last few years with the sort of rise of social media. Like, you're getting a bit more behind the scenes sort of access, like you said, with Parsons, Eddie, and like, it's not something you would have seen probably about 10-15 years ago, him having these quite open conversations with the media as much.
I think I don't know if I'm speaking on behalf. Like with Eddie, I think he's quite an open guy. I say open guy, like he if you go to a press conference with boxing, no matter who you are with, if you've got your camera, your microphone, etc., Eddie will give you some time. Unless you're in a rush and they want to put you in a scrum. Eddie will always be like, I think I went to Cordina Rakhimov press conference this year, and it was in Cardiff, obviously, and I think it was, I was just running around trying to do some interviews, etc. Anyway, I left about 2.5 hours after the press conference finished, and Eddie was still doing interviews one-to-one with other people. Jesus. And he has got a lot of time for that. So yeah, in terms of the access, I think it's becoming a bit more of a populated field, the boxing media is, and like I said, they give you a lot of time. Sometimes, you know, they're in a rush, they'll put you in a scrum, but yeah, it is good access at boxing, and they are really like I said, I don't really know how really to build on it. Like, you know, it has built over time, especially with the social media, but yeah, it's not that anyone can go in there, but they do have a lot of time for the people that are there.
It's good. It's good to hear, and maybe while we're on the topic of Eddie Hearn and talking about him, this is a good opportunity that we would like to pitch to you our Queensberry versus Matchroom 5 fights, which obviously has been recently signed, so it is going to happen. What I think we should. How do you guys want to do? Do you want to go one fight by one fight?
We've agreed on now 5 fights, haven't we?
Yeah, so do we want to go one fight each, or do you think it's a bit easier to go all 5 fights?
You're the promoter here, Sam. You sell it.
Do you know what? I'll say
sell the dream.
We'll do all 5 fights, and then
see how wrong we are.
You can ask us obviously afterwards to summarise all the different fights, and we'll see which one you would like to see. So I'm going to start at the bottom. With my bottom fight would be Johnny Fisher versus Moses Atoma. Obviously Moses Atoma 7-0 Southpaw, Johnny Fisher 10-0.
Soon to be 11-0.
as Harry says, and you know, what a crowd and what a fan base that Fisher's brought. I'd love to see him, you know, get the opportunity to fight over in Saudi under Matchroom, and I think Moses Atoma is someone's going to end up with a 1 on their record, and that's what I've kind of tried to go for on this card is trying to build a card where a couple of people are going to end up with a 1 on their record.
Yeah.
Building up from that, I've got Felix Cash of Matchroom fighting Nathan Heaney. So they're fighting for the Commonwealth and WBC International. Obviously, again, another one. Nathan Heaney brings the crowd, brings the atmosphere, brings the support. They both beat Denzel Bentley. So they're obviously of a similar pedigree, 16-0, 18-0. So I think that would be a really, really interesting fight. And then to move on up, Lee Wood versus Nick Ball. I've been saying for a while now, I think Nick Ball is due an opportunity to fight for a title and fight at the top end of boxing, because I really, really rate him as a boxer. I don't necessarily think this fight will happen, because obviously I think Lee Wood's tied up with some other fights. But I don't live in the real world. I'm going for what would be the best fight to see. And I think Lee Wood versus Nick Ball would be an unbelievable fight to watch, in terms of knockout power and the way that fight would go. And then my sort of second fight under the undercard would be Filip Hrgović versus Daniel Dubois. Obviously, Daniel Dubois has come off the back of an impressive win against Jarrell Miller, got the finish. Filip Hrgović, like we said, got the finish, but wasn't a particularly interesting fight. But Hrgović holds quite a bit of power because he's got that IBF tie with the mandatory, and I think in terms of for Dubois, it'd be a great opportunity to maybe help him propel himself back to where he was before the Usyk fights, or Usyk fight, and then obviously Hrgović is an unbeaten fighter with a big name in the business. And then to finish off, I think this is the one that we all have. I'd imagine Callum Smith versus Anthony Yard. I don't even think that fight needs selling in terms of what it would be. Callum Smith off the back of the Beterbiev loss. Anthony Yard has had some big losses in his career, but against some huge fighters. So both of them are just huge names in the business, and I think would be a great card from top to bottom, if not a little bit ambitious.
Yeah, the only one I will say, I think Lee Wood's going to go up in weight, so I don't think you would get Lee Wood against Nick Ball, but it'd be a great fight if Lee Wood could make featherweight and they want to do that fight. Brilliant. But I wouldn't be against seeing Josh Warrington in with Nick Ball. I think that would just be a fire fight.
Liverpool versus
How
Leeds.
on earth have I not put Josh Warrington? I'm a Leeds fan, so I bring up Josh Warrington's name at every possible opportunity. I don't know how I've missed that one. I think I just went style-wise. I think the Lee Wood Nick Ball, you're guaranteed to see a finish. But obviously, I'd happily watch Warrington fight Ball. I
just think with Warrington coming forward with balls, then, and I think just the styles there would gel completely. It would just be all action, it'd just be fireworks. But I don't. Again, I think Warrington's on about going up in weight, but I don't know if that's just to chase the Lee Wood rematch, or is that generally because he wants to go up. The other one I'd say for Nick Ball is Raymond Ford, especially if he can beat Kolmatov. So then he'll bring the WBA to the thing, to the plate, and then obviously Nick Ball's fighting Ray Vargas for the WBC. So you'll have a unification there, but I think Josh Warrington, Nick Ball's the one for me for that card.
Fair enough. I'll pass over to you, Ben. You can pitch your one.
I'll go first fight. I got Sulaiman Sissoko and Echo Esserman. I think similar sort of records, welterweight or super welterweight. I think that'll be a good first fight. Got female fighter and Sky Nicholson and Raven Chapman, 9-0 against 8-0. Got Queen of Matchroom against Queen of Queensberry. Fight 3, I got Nick Ball fighting, but I've gone slightly different to what most other people have looked at, and I've gone for Zelfa Barrett. So we've got Manchester against Liverpool, and probably Nick Ball would have to go up slightly in weight from where he's fought the last few fights, but they've both fought at 131 before. Fight 4 then, Johnny Fisher against Solomon Dakers I've gone for. So you got English champion in Solomon Dakers against Southern Area champion Fisher. 10-0 against 8-0 again, another one. And then the main event, I think we've all got similar, is Callum Smith and Anthony Yard.
Yeah, that's a good card. The thing is, like I said, with Dakers and Fisher, it's a great. I think Fisher's going to be your heavyweight attraction on the card for Matchroom. One of them, definitely. I think a good fight. Dakers would be a good fight, but then you've also got David Adelaide as well. Yeah. But I don't know. There's rumblings of them two reportedly fighting each other next on that Birmingham card. I don't know if there's much truth in that rumour. So I think it would definitely be a case of whoever wins that fight, I think, but should get the Johnny Fisher fight. I think Moses Atoma, I think is brilliant, but I think he's a bit, and I think he could even potentially beat Johnny Fisher, but I think that I just think he's got a long career ahead of him. I reckon just keep going as he is now. Well, keep stepping him up gradually, because I think if he beats Fisher, it's hard to say. I know Fisher's also young. It's a big rebuild then for either of them. As I think if Fisher loses to, say, a Dakers, who's English champion, because obviously Fisher's Southern Area champion, or he loses to an Adelaide, who's a British title challenger, it's a lot easier to build him back up. As if he loses, like say, like a 19-year-old prospect, it could be a bit tougher. But then again, he does bring the fans, so it could all change with that one.
You want my one? I've gone Daniel Dubois is the only one that I've changed on there, and I've gone Dempsey McKean. Yeah. And also Hamza Shiraz against Felix Cash.
So you've swapped out Heaney for Hamza Shiraz compared to mine, and you've swapped out Dubois.
I don't think they'll take Heaney out of the UK with his fan base.
I agree with that. I think they're trying to build something. They want a Bet365 stadium fight with him, and I think that's what I mean. Like I said, they took him to Manchester. He took plenty of fans there when he beat Denzel Bentley. His next fight's now Brad Paul's in Birmingham, which is close to home. I think they're looking to build Nathan Heaney in Stoke, and I think it'll be. I don't think they'll take him out to Saudi. I think Hamza Shiraz is a perfect option, especially with like his issue. Obviously, he's got a tough fight on February the 10th against Liam Williams, but I think Felix Cash could be a great fight for Hamza Shiraz. According to the European Boxing Union, they were apparently Felix Cash is fighting Tyler Denny on a boxer show, but nothing's been announced yet, so I don't know what's going on with that fight. But that could be a good one. Or you've also got Amo Williams, who was meant to fight Felix Cash, kept never materialised. So that's another one that you could put. But I think Hamza Shiraz is your option there for middleweight for Queensberry, 100%.
If we couldn't put in one Welsh guy on there, what about Gavin Gwynn, Gary Cully?
Yeah, I think so. But I also think they're going to try and build Gary Cully now in Dublin, because I think obviously the first time he was chief support to Katie Taylor, Chantal Cameron, obviously he got stopped by Jose Felix. He's come back then. He beat Reece Mould in a close fight in Dublin again. And I think Matchroom were enjoying the nights in Dublin. They seem like an incredible atmosphere. So I think Gary Cully is one that I think could be, they're trying to push to be the headline act in Dublin. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they did go for that fight over in Saudi Arabia. But I think Cully's one that opens a new territory, because I don't think Katie Taylor's got long left. So I think Cully then could be the flag bearer for boxing in Dublin.
Fair enough. Well, what we'll do then...
Can I say one more?
Of course.
Conor Benn? Do you reckon he could get on there? Echo Essuman? Ben said, do you reckon he could be fighting in Saudi?
I mean, yeah, potentially. Echo Essuman and Suleiman Sissoko is a great fight. I do think that. Conor Benn, though, would add name value for whether it be the right or wrong reasons. But, yeah, maybe. But Conor Benn... Obviously, he's fighting Peter Dobson now on February 3rd, but he's calling out big names left, right and centre, and the greatest respect to Echo Essuman. I don't think he's in the names that Conor Benn's calling out, but it could still happen. But I'm not sure where Ben goes after the Peter Dobson fight, providing he wins, obviously. But I don't think Echo Essuman would be on his radar, but obviously I could be proven wrong.
Fair enough. Well, one thing we are on this podcast is very competitive with each other, so I'm going to have to ask you to pick, if you were to pick one of our cards exactly as they are, no alterations, which one would you go for? And then maybe, if you'd like, we can make a little combination one. We can make the Jared Parry 5v5 as well.
I've probably got to go with Ben's, to be honest with you. I think the fights are quite well matched there. One fight that I'm really intrigued by, and Ben brought it up, Sky Nicholson, Raven Chapman. For me, that, especially, that'd be a huge fight. Like I said, I don't know where the world title implications might fit into that, because obviously, after Raven's last win, she called out Serrano. Sky Nicholson has been calling out Serrano. Serrano's now obviously fighting Nina Menka. If the belts get fragmented, and I think they both want really high up with obviously Sky's interim champion with WBC. If they can get a female world title fight, the first female world title fight to take place in Saudi on that card, I think they'd have to jump at the opportunity, and be history. It'd be a historic night then. So that's a fight that I'm really interested in. Also just the Suleiman Sissoko Essuman fight is something that never even sprung to my mind. I completely.
Yeah, I think you've got all of us on that one. None of us.
It was a left field one, which is. actually quite intriguing. No, it is. It's very intriguing.
I think I was just sort of trying to look for a fight where you don't want too many fights on the card where you sort of look at it and think, I know where it's going.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you won that sort of one that's gonna probably make the difference either side.
The thing is, I can't really think of many more fights you can get on the card. Like, I seen Queensberry have got the prospect Sam Noakes, obviously 100% knockout ratio, fighting for the British title against Lewis Sylvester next. Sam's brother Sean also boxes. Sean put Matchroom haven't got a lightweight that could handle Sam Noakes. Eddie Ian came back and said, what about Andy Cruz? Now, that is a fight that I think shouldn't really... That for me, is a fight that shouldn't be taking place on a card like this. But that's the only other one outside of what we have mentioned that I can see happening. Obviously, there's Fury Joshua, but I think that's a card in itself. Like, you know,
I don't think they're going to waste Fury Joshua.
We all said that we weren't going to include that one just because it seems like that's its own thing.
Yeah.
And it would be nonsensical to sort of include it in this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you've sort of in a roundabout way you've picked out your five fights. I suppose you've got the Sky Nicholson fight.
Yeah.
You've got I think you said Felix Cass Shiraz maybe.
Yeah.
Have you got a heavyweight clash you'd want to see? Would that be Johnny Fisher, Dacres, or do you want to see Hrgovic or Dubois or someone like that?
I think I'm probably going to go with Dacres or Adelaide, because if they do fight next, winner of that against Fisher, and it's only because I just think it's easier to rebuild from that if Fisher was to lose. I'm not saying Fisher would lose, by the way, but if he was to lose, I think building back from Moses Atalma is a bit of a trickier task. But I'd probably go Dacres or Adelaide against Fisher, and I want to say Nick Ball Warrington. I really do. That would be my final one, Nick Ball against Warrington. I think Nick Ball is one of my favourite fighters.
So you wouldn't include a Callum Smith Anthony?
In
there? That's the dead set.
That's
one.
the dead set. Yeah, that if Callum Smith continues, that's the fight to make. It's weird if you look back in hindsight. Obviously, only a year ago, Joshua Buatsi was with Matchroom. Now I'd have said Buatsi Yard if I had the choice of what I could have there. But obviously he's gone over to Boxer, now fighting Dan Aziz, etc. But Callum Smith against Yard, if Yard wants to continue, Smith wants to continue rather with boxing. Obviously, it was a tough loss to Beterbiev. I think that's a brilliant fight and be a perfect. If he came back and did a job on Anthony Yard, it's a perfect way to silence any doubters that may think that he hasn't got much left.
And a tidy payday to finish your career on, I suppose, as well.
Absolutely.
You'd have thought. So yeah, we sort of said we'd circle back to some of the Saudi stuff, and we talked in detail about how great the Saudi events have been and how well put on they are. But what about some of the fights that we've got coming up? Obviously, you've got Bivol Beterbiev coming up, and we talked about that one on one of our last podcasts, and I had a real difficulty of saying that Bivol would lose, but then also I found it difficult to say that Bivol would beat Beterbiev. I don't know if you've got a view on that one, or just a view on it as a fight.
It's the best fight to make in boxing. I'm not saying it's the biggest fight, but I think it's the best fight you can make. Obviously, Beterbiev's power. I thought Beterbiev, when he fought Yard, was on the slide, and then the way he dismantled Smith was, I was like, right, okay, he is near enough untouchable. But then you got Bivol, who, okay, against Lyndon Arthur, that was, I don't think it could be understated how one-sided it was. Credit Lyndon Arthur for staying in there. Lyndon Arthur's a very good fighter, but it was very, very, very one-sided. And then, but before that, when Bivol beat Zerdo Ramirez, I thought that was one of the best performances I've seen in the boxing ring. It was a masterclass. So it's a tough one to call, because I think Beterbiev has the power to switch anyone's lights out, and I think that's proven. But I think Bivol's, just his movement and everything is, I can't really call it, to be honest, with that one.
I'm gonna sit on the fence.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's gonna be a tight decision in the favour of Bivol.
Ooh.
Wow.
Was it me? Did I go for Bivol? I think I did.
You probably did.
I think I did. I do really rate. I think for me, Bivol he's the boxing purist's boxer, in the sense of and I'm not. That's not me trying to make myself sound any better than I am, but in the sense of just the beauty of boxing he shows in abundance. He's just so technically sound, so doesn't really get hit with much.
Nah.
It's the idea of, hit and don't get hit. He sort of summarises that rather than just smash the lights out.
That's what I mean. I think it's one of them, though. I wouldn't be surprised by any outcome, but I've seen, like, obviously Bivol was on the reckoning card. I've seen him up close. Maybe not his best performance, but you could see he is a special fighter. And like I said, best fight to make in boxing. And if I was put to it now and I had to give you a dead set predict, well, I wouldn't be able to give you a dead set one, but I'd say Bivol by decision. But if Beterbiev was to win, I could see many different outcomes that fight, but that's the one I'm just edging towards at the minute.
50-50, yeah.
Yeah, proper.
Imagine this now, though, that Fury Usyk goes the distance, and then it's either a draw, guaranteed rematch straight after that. Fury Usyk potentially the main event, and then Bivol Beterbiev as the could that maybe help that fight? Because it's a big fight, but they're not really known to the Western world as names, are they?
It is a tough one because Fury Usyk, they literally didn't need, if they didn't even put an undercard on it, it'd still be a pay-per-view fight in the UK without question. It's a really good undercard on it as well, but even if they didn't put that undercard on it, it would still sell in the UK as a pay-per-view fight. Bivol Beterbiev, if that was a headline show, you'd need to sell pay-per-views. I think you'd need a big card or a big name on the card, because boxing fans will know how big that fight is. It's like Spence Crawford last year, biggest fight of the year, and it did end up on pay-per-view over here, I know, but like, boxing fans around the world were like, oh my god, I can't believe it's happening. But if you were in the street and said, are you watching the fight this weekend, Spence Crawford, you can't guarantee someone would say, oh yeah, a big fight that. But like with Fury Usyk, you walked on the street, they're like, oh, it's happening, isn't it? Yeah, I'll watch that. So I think Bivol Beterbiev is a fight that will be on like a card, headliner card, and you'd have a huge undercard on it. I don't think they could. I think it would be a bit of a stretch putting both on the same card, Bivol Beterbiev and Fury Usyk too, if that was to happen. So yeah, I think I think they'd be two separate events, but if they were to put it on together, then what a show that would be.
Yeah, proper. And Harry, you mentioned you've got you want Jared to maybe blind rank some fighters. Yeah. So obviously we're going to give you is it 5 fighters you prepared?
Top 10.
Top 10.
I've seen it from the list.
So 10 fighters. You don't get to know who's coming up. Yeah. You give them a number 1 to 10, and obviously
who's noted down
at the end. I'll write it down.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Ready? Gervonta Davis.
8.
Okay. Alexander Usyk.
3.
Oh, that's where I had him. Errol Spence Jr.
I'm gonna go 9.
Okay. Canelo Alvarez.
4.
Okay. Tyson Fury.
Oh. I'm gonna go 10.
Wow. Okay. Artur Beterbiev.
6.
Terence Crawford.
1.
Devin Haney.
5.
And Noe.
2.
Okay. Have I missed one? Dimitri Bivol. That's the last one. So where's Dimitri Bivol going?
So obviously going to go like
yeah.
Is that 7?
Goes 8, does he?
So who was 2?
2 was Devin Haney.
No, 2 was Noe.
No, sorry.
Inui 2, which means Haney goes in at 7.
Okay. So what's that then from?
So.
Oh, hang on, 8. Oh yeah, Haney. No, I thought Bivol goes in at 7, didn't he?
Sorry, Bivol at 7.
Yeah.
So to be honest, for a
decent,
a blind ranking, this is not bad. Canelo, Fury 10. Harry's gonna. I don't mind that one.
To be honest, yeah.
Errol Spence Jr. 9. That's probably about right. Maybe you'd swap those two round. Gervonta Davis 8. Beterbiev 6. Sorry, Bivol 7. Beterbiev 6, which suggests opposite to maybe.
Yeah.
But then again, stars make fights, like you say, and a boxer can be ranked higher and lose a fight. That's not, definitive. Haney in at 5, so you've got Haney beating Davis, I presume, would be.
I think he
off
does.
That one, yeah, and then Canelo 4. Obviously Canelo lost to Bivol. So there's an interesting sort of thing there, but there's always going to be.
How did he know that Canelo Alvarez was on the list?
Usyk 3, Inouye 2, Crawford 1, and to be honest, that top 3 I think
Yeah,
is
you can't
pretty,
argue with that.
pretty
top
bang
three.
on. You've done well there.
I think Crawford and Inouye is the only two that I really. On Boxing Day, if you asked me on the evening, I told you Inouye number 1. I would have, but I think it's just what Crawford's done. Like, he's come up through all the weights, he's beaten all the champions, and that win over Errol Spence, let's be honest, that was a demolition. That was a 50-50 fight, and he made it look like, and he was the one coming in with one belt into that. It's hard not to have him at the top. But Gervonta Davis is a bit of an interesting one, really, like on that list, because I think he is brilliant, obviously, but I think Devin Haney does do a good job on him. But then again, Gervonta's also got the power. I don't know, that's a tough one, but I'm quite happy with how that blind list came out.
Yeah, you've done really well there. And I think to go on to the Haney-Davis one, and we talked about it because His Excellency said he wants to make it happen in Saudi. I think, for me, the way Haney performed against... the mind's gone blank, his last fight. Prograis, where it was the lowest punch fight ever after the Shakur Stevenson De Los Santos fight. Just the way that he made Prograis look so, not even just average, but so bad. And Prograis's a top fighter. I think, you worry necessarily what Davies, power or not, what he could even do to Haney if he performs like that against Prograis, like he did against Prograis.
I think Gervonta's a fantastic fighter, but there's always question marks. Everyone talks about the Isaac Cruz fight, where some people were like, it was a lot closer than it should have been. Haney, though, for me, is just... I've always rated Haney. I did think him and Lomachenko was a lot closer than... it was a very, very...
That was one of my fights of the years.
I thought it was a brilliant fight, but I could see the argument for both men being the victor. But to do what he did to Prograis, again, just take him apart. And he proved he's a big star as well. They took him to San Francisco, his hometown. He sold it out. I think he's a brilliant fighter, Devin Haney, and I'd like to see where he goes next, because obviously super lightweight's it's a great division, but I really, really like, I don't know if, I'm sure you've seen in the IBF champion Subriel Matias, and that is all action, really good to watch. Now, I'd love to see Haney against Matias, but we'll see what happens, because obviously you've always got Jack Catterall lurking around that area, Josh Taylor, of course. Teofimo Lopez, he's coming back now in a couple of weeks' time. It's a really good division, and I'm really glad to see Haney step into it, because obviously he's gone from lightweight up there now. That's a division to keep an eye on for definite.
Yeah, there's a few good fighters in that division, like you said as well. Looks like Josh Taylor and Catterall. I had Catterall winning the original fight. I think
home time advantage.
But, we've seen this weekend how often that can happen. But yeah. I was hoping, I think we said a couple of weeks ago, I was hoping for that fight to be made in 2024 for Catterall to sort of try and get revenge there.
I agree. Like, it was meant to happen at the start of last year, wasn't it? But it got an injury stopped it. And Josh Taylor said on the weekend in an interview that I heard with him, like, you're not going to turn down a Madison Square Garden fight against a mandatory opponent who was Teofimo Lopez, who's a big name. You're not going to turn that down, and I can see why he took it. But that's one of them fights that has to happen, Catterall Taylor too, because I feel like it will close a chapter, because there will always be the what if. What if the decision went the other way? Like, what if... I don't know. Like, I think that's a fight that must happen. It hasn't really lost. Obviously, if it happens out, there'll be no belts on the line, but I still don't think it's lost its power to sell that fight.
No, still that spite there between the two of them, and Catterall's still
bubbling over
unfinished
recently.
business.
It's been bubbling over on Twitter and stuff, and it's all X,
Yeah, more so than ever. Of course, I've seen that lately. I think that it's a natural fight to be made, to be honest. It's a bit of a shame, really, because when I seen Catterall sign with Matchroom, I thought, right, okay, they gave him Dara Foley first. I was like, yeah, warm him up. I thought they'd go Regis Prograis next, because he'd only signed a couple of weeks prior. But then obviously the Haney Prograis, which was always going to sell in America, so I don't blame him for making it. Then Catterall came back against Linares, which was a fight that, it's a good fight, but I think it was not what everyone wanted to see. And now I think the Josh Taylor fight's I think that is the fight for him that they've got to make. And I think it should happen in the UK, but that's one that I wouldn't be surprised if you see land up on one of these cards in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. And this is a question that these days you kind of have to ask when you're talking about boxing, and people have some seriously opposing views on it. Influencer boxing, or the misfits and the Jake Pauls and of the world. I sense from your initial facial expression what your thoughts on that is. But what is your sort of your fundamental thought on influencer boxing as a thing? Has it got a place in boxing, or is it a flash in the pan movement?
Firstly, I want to say what Jake Paul's done for boxing can't be denied. Like, honestly, he's made, well, Amanda Serrano was a star in herself, but she's now getting headline fights. She's getting he's done really well, and I like how he has gone down the boxing route. Like, obviously, everyone's complaining that his last opponent, Andre August, wasn't up to it, etc. But it's a boxer. Like, you can't really complain about that. He's actually fighting a boxer. But the best way, Eddie Hearn said it in an interview last year with someone, and it was the two different sports, influencer boxing and boxing. They may have the term boxing and they may have the same whatever, like, you know, but like the weekend there was a Misfits card on, and entertainment, yes, but there was a stoppage on there, and it was genuinely a fella called not Logan Paul.
Yeah, we've seen that. We had a brief chat about it.
It was like, I don't know how to even put it. Like, you know, it was like,
looking at it sometimes it's dangerous to a point.
Yeah,
like you could have easily stopped that fight probably 2 or 3 times before they actually stopped it.
Exactly that, and that's the thing. And I get it's entertainment, but boxing's not a forgiving sport. Obviously, it's one of the most brutal sports you can be involved in. So, I think I don't want us to turn around and say get rid of it completely, because it's clearly got a market, and in the day and age we live in, if it makes money, it's going to make sense, unfortunately. But I don't agree with it. I think, you know, when it first started out, like the one I always look back at, Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, and that's the one that I think is fine, because Tommy Fury had fought boxers, Jake Paul had gone down the boxing route, etc. When they started the influencer boxing, I was like, okay, fine, but keep it to themselves, keep it to like that way. But now, I just think that it needs to be not disassociated as such, but I think it needs to be established that it's not the same as what you're going to see. Like, for instance, if you watched DAZN Saturday night, you'd have had Misfits boxing. If you watched Sky Sports, you'd have had Jonas Meyer. And you need to understand that I don't think you'd be watching the same. Like, for a casual, needs to understand they wouldn't be watching the same level of boxing, or the same style, really, of boxing, to be honest.
Yeah, I think for me, the way I've seen it, it rings true to some of the things we're seeing at the moment with the white collar scene and student boxing nights and stuff, and some of the risks attached with that. I mean, you know, if I was to walk into a boxing gym under the British or Welsh boxing control at the moment and said, you know, I want a fast track, I want to get a fight, you know, you'd be looking at you know, probably 12 months of turning up to that gym every single week and working hard and sparring and really proving that you're not going to have fitness issues in the ring, because that can cause some serious health issues, and you're in a place where you're not just going to walk in there and cause yourself some serious damage. And obviously people want to live the dream of a boxer without having to do the hard yards, which is where the sort of influencer boxing comes into it.
We've seen this in influencer boxing, haven't we? With what was his name? Arms.
Yeah. Arms.
Come on now.
Coolio
Should
when
never have gone in a boxing ring.
Carrying that much muscle.
Was that the one at York Hall?
York Hall,
yeah, and they when they announced him as a winner, they had the prop. Yeah, no, I
lift
watched
his hand.
that. Yeah, no. I think there needs to be another layer of safety to it.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to carry on doing it. I don't know how it really works. I've never been to a Misfits event, etc. I don't know how they work around it, but it's just like you said there with that Arms one. I remember actually watching that, and the fight should have been stopped in the last round. You know, you could see. I remember watching the fight. He was against the ropes and he was like throwing like a flailing arm
Didn't
back.
have his eyes open as well.
Yeah. And then obviously got announced the winner, and they could barely lift his arms because, I think it needs more. I don't know. The safety is my only concern, like about it. But you know, we'll see we'll see where it lies in the next couple of years. Because I'm just starting to feel even some of the names that are getting onto it now aren't really
big.
No, it's just anyone now, isn't it? And
you know,
Technically, we could go on there now.
another thing I've noticed from watching a few of the fights a lot of the time is obviously they're not people who are used to being in a fight in a boxing ring. How often you see one of them, once they have a few shots landed on them, turning their back and trying to turn away from a fight, and how dangerous that could be.
Yeah.
Like if someone gets caught with a shot whilst they turn in the back of the head, like it'll only be a matter of time before someone gets seriously hurt or something like that.
Just like that, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here because you saying that turning the back. There was a fight on the undercard of James Mayer on the weekend. Steve Clark against Vassiv Mamedov. I don't know if you saw it, and it got stopped because Mamedov turned his back. Yeah. Right. There were some people online saying, "Oh, it's a bad stoppage." Right, it was a good stoppage. Right. I thought because he's turned his back, but in the influence of boxing, I've seen that happen a few times. And it's just carried on, and I think that's dangerous. It is dangerous, like what you just said. I totally agree that, you know, I just think there's another layer of safety I think needs to be added, but I'm not sure where the land will lie with it. Like I said, you know,
the one thing I can't understand is that they're using professional boxing gloves as well. They're not using big cushions. They're 12 ounce, 10 ounce gloves.
12, 14 ounce gloves and head guards it would certainly be safer, but it's a concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And we're sort of wrapping up into the final sort of 10 minutes of the podcast. So I think it's good time to move to maybe some just sort of rounding up questions. And then we've got one question that we're going to ask every one of our guests, which we'll touch on just right at the end. But I suppose, is there a fighter you've got in mind to look out for in 2024 that maybe people won't have on their radar? So we done this when we did a 2023 rewind. I think I picked out Fran Hennessy, Ben Whittaker, now he's back from injury, and Nick Ball. I can't remember some of the names you guys threw
Fisher,
Hoppataya was one for me. Just
what a fighter he is.
So you know, is there a name you've got that they don't have to be small, but just that's, you know, people need to keep their eyes on that name if they see it, you know, in the boxing world?
In America, obviously, the Cuban Olympian, one of the greatest amateurs, one of the greatest amateurs of all time, obviously not long-term pro, Andy Cruz, mentioned him earlier. Keep an eye on him. He was on the Haney program, the card against Giovanni Straffon, and he was unbelievable. Like, honestly, he was so good to watch. I'm trying to think. There's definitely some names out there now. On the spot, I can't really think of them off the top of my head. But there's some like to keep an eye on. Obviously, I quite enjoyed, like, obviously this Belfast card coming up this weekend. Lewis Crocker, he's been brilliant to watch. His right, he carries power in both hands, and obviously his last fight with Tyrone McKenna, it was a great fight. I definitely keep an eye on him. Like I said, fighters to watch. Opataya's always got to be up there. I tell you what, I remember did you boys watch the fight when he fought Bradis the first time? And Carla Sauerland described it this week as a fight at two halves. So the first 6 rounds, Opataya was miles ahead. Bradis caught him, broke his jaw in 2 places, and the last 6 rounds was all Bradis, and it was an unbelievable fight. Obviously the rematch looks set to happen in Saudi, and then I thought, he's a good champion. He took a long time out though because he had to have all the surgery. And he just came in, he battered Jordan Thompson. Like, Jordan Thompson's a good fighter, but there was levels. And again, I thought Ellis Zorro's not at Opataya's level at all, and that was personally one of the most brutal KOs I've seen like in person. So I think Opataya, obviously keep your eye on, but I think I'm not really sure. There's loads of good prospects out there to keep an eye on who are going to have breakout years. I think you know, boxing's in a good place in terms of that, with people coming through. You got to remember, we've got the Olympics coming up this year. Obviously, if boxing takes place in that, you'll always get some names out of that. They'll always be touched upon with the professional game as well. So that's always something to keep an eye on. Like, you've seen how the Olympians get on when they turn pro, etc. So yeah, it'll be good. I'm looking forward to seeing where this year goes. But for me, for a name that I'm sure many people do already know, But if you're up for these American cards, honestly, keep an eye on Andy Cruz. He is unbelievable.
Fair enough.
What about something to change in boxing? Obviously, you talked about Amanda Serrano earlier on. You know, she went last year. She went 12 3-minute rounds for the first time, and there was nothing wrong with a female fighter going that distance. Do you expect boxing to maybe start making female fighters go 3-minute rounds, or do you reckon that's too far, too quick?
Or even is that something you want to see, or you?
It's a strange one, really, because I am by no means a boxer, etc. But as a fan, I quite enjoy 10 2-minute rounds, like quick, fast. They have to get their work done. I think it makes the fights a bit more action-packed and more entertaining. However, I also think that I can see the case for 12 3-minute rounds. I think the fights will still be entertaining, etc. But it's one that I think I think in terms of I enjoy 10 2-minute rounds, but if they went to 12 3-minute rounds, I'd be happy to, because it would be nice to see across the board just everything's the same. Do you know what I mean? Like both for male and female. So I would say that, but I think there's not too much I'd want to change in boxing. The minute that I can think of anyway, but I think 12 3-minute rounds for women I think is definitely a step in the right direction, but I do enjoy 10 2-minute rounds. However, if it moved on, I'd be more for it.
Fair enough. And so the closing question before we finish up.
Just before we go on to that one, just obviously with the fights in 2024, the 2 mega fights we've got set up, just quick predictions for Fury Usyk and Joshua Ngannou. So I think we've given ours, but
We've given ours every podcast, I think.
Make it quick though, because someone's going to come kicking down the door in a second.
I'm going to go with Usyk. Off the last performance of Fury, obviously, I think he underestimated Ngannou, and I think, but I don't know. Fury's got the size advantage. Usyk, though, I enjoy watching Usyk. It's a close fight. I'm going to go with Usyk, but it's another one where I'm going to be a bit on the fence. I wouldn't be shocked if Fury was to win, as he always in big fights. You always see Fury does turn up really well. Joshua Ngannou, truthfully, I think Joshua gets him out of there within 7 rounds. I think I don't think there's any messing with Joshua. I thought Joshua against Wallin was that's the best I've seen AJ fight in years, and I think AJ will just come out. I think if he sticks with Ben Davison, I think he'll get him out of there in 7 rounds. But obviously Ngannou is hard, really. Like he was an open book in the Fury fight. No one really knew what to expect, and he did do very well. But I think AJ's going to be switched on, especially now that he's seen what Ngannou's capable of in the ring. As obviously Fury was coming in slightly blind, obviously with not seeing him box before. So I think Joshua might come in, and I think he'll get him out there in 7 rounds.
Fair enough. So our last question is, and we're going to pose this to every one of our guests and see what they would talk about. So it's a little dream main event. So what you get to do is you get to pick 2 fighters, dead or alive, who you want to see fight. You can pick the location you want to see them fight at, and then you can fill that stadium with an atmosphere or a set of fans. So you could do, I don't know, Muhammad Ali Tyson in Madison Square Garden with Haney's crowd, for example. So we'll work it through 1-on-1. 2 fighters, dead or alive, you'd like to see fight. It's a big one, but
it's a strange one here, and it's one that still gets talked about now, and it is Joe Calzaghe, Carl Froch.
Mm-hmm.
that was my one.
that is a big one.
I had Joe Calzaghe in my one as well.
That is a big one. And then obviously, where's that you wanting it to fight? Is that a night in Cardiff in the Principality?
Principality, 100%. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be against it being on away territory in the City Ground, because obviously it'll be one of them where it's a big away day, and if Calzaghe was to win, it would be partisan. But I'm going to go, it got to be a Principality job. Like, boxing in the Principality is unbelievable. I've been there a couple of times. Yeah, Joe Calzaghe versus Carl Froch, Principality Stadium. 100%.
And then who are you filling it with? Are you filling it with the Red Wall? Are you filling it with the Swansea.com stadium atmosphere? What are you going for?
It's just going. I want it to be sea of red, all Wales.
As many Welshmen as you can fit in the Principality.
I want it to be loud. I want it to be. I want it to be like, let's be honest, if any of you have been to a Wales football game, I know they're down the CCS. I want an atmosphere like that for when we got, like, say when we played Ukraine, for instance. I want an atmosphere like that. National anthems, deafening. I want it all
coming out with Amo O'Heed as well.
Yeah. Put all that on there. 100%. It's Calzaghe Froch for me.
Wow, fair enough. Well,
it's interesting. We had the same fight, same fans, but I put mine in Neon Park.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, I like that too. That's the Cardiff City fan in you, though, isn't it?
Oh, hang on, we put it in.
So yeah, it's been brilliant to talk to you, Jared. It's been a genuine pleasure.
Thank you.
I'll give you the opportunity. Is there anything you've got coming up that you want to plug or you want to say, or are you just you're just happy to be here, taking it as it comes?
No, I just want to say, lads, just crack on what you're doing. Obviously, it's boxing's it's a sport. There's always something going on, and it's good to see you coming through now and obviously keeping an eye on what's going on with the sport, etc. And I wish you all the best with this podcast, to be fair, and thank you very much for having me on. And that's all I got to say really. Obviously, if you want to see anything I do, it's Boxing Socials where I usually can be found, or but like I said, just for you lads, just crack on doing what you're doing. I've heard the podcast, it's really good. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, boys. That's all I got to say.
Perfect. Well, the podcast is available on Spotify or YouTube, or if you want fight announcements, I always say this, it's on Twitter. Harry does some fight previews on there as well. Everything's on the Twitter if you miss it. And we'll catch you all next week when we have a look at the Belfast card and see who has won those fights. Thank you all for tuning in.